My name is Abina Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history.
Hello.
Talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. This is Saturday, and I want to say happy weekend wherever you are. We are very glad to have you. Tonight on Between the Headlines, we're going to be looking at the appointment of Councillor Jonathan Massaquoi as the Executive Director for the Office of War Crimes Court. Executive order established that office, and Councillor Massaquoi was appointed as the executive director of that office. Who is Councillor Massaquoi? We're going to look into that. And his appointment has drawn sharp criticism from some sectors in our community. I have with me some people, or former commissioners of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, some of whom disagree with this appointment. So we're going to talk more what their disagreements are and how do we move forward to have the War Crimes Court finally established in Liberia. Let me welcome former commissioner of the TRC, Madam Massa Amelia Washington. She's also a journalist. Welcome, Massa.
Thank you, Dennis. It is a pleasure to be back on FOL as usual. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let me welcome joining us from Monrovia is veteran journalist and also former TRC Commissioner John H.T. Stewart. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. It's my pleasure to be here with you, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Last but not the least is FOL legal analyst, Councillor Frederick A.B. Jewe, and will also tell you later on his connection with this whole thing. Councillor Jewe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm happy to be here. This is a very important issue. We will ask our people to please pay attention.
Thank you. We are asking all our people, please pay attention, invite somebody, share the show, and let's discuss the appointment of Councillor Jonathan Massaquoi. I want us to start by, first of all, I'm very excited to have Mr. Stewart on the line. This is our first time. So, Mr. Stewart, this is your first time on Focus on Liberia. We want to welcome you with a bottle of water and say, feel at home. We want you to come back and back and back and back. Thank you so much for coming. Let me hear from you, your opening.
Well, thanks again for having me. If you have followed the Front Page Africa report, I'm maintain that Mr. Councillor Jonathan Massaquoi is not the best fit, is not the best and proper fit for the job. He is conflicted. He is representing individuals or clients who have sued human rights activists based on lies, especially on against Commissioner Massa Washington. And so I don't think he'll be the best fit. He's currently representing a number of clients who are associated with the horrors of the Liberian Civil War. And because of that, I don't think he's the best fit. He's conflicted. And more to that, he lacks the requisite in international criminal law. There's something else I want to add to this. He is a lawyer for the law firm owned by the Speaker, Jonathan Kofa, International Law Group. And this is a law firm that a lot of people go to because they feel that the Speaker can use his weight to influence decisions in the court. And I can say that because I have personal experience with that, but probably we can save that for later. And but suffice it to say that Massaquoi has defended someone in a lawsuit involving myself. But beyond that, the fact that Kofa led the drive to establish the War and Economic Crimes Court, I was very supportive of him. But now it appears to me that his drive was motivated by a certain hidden agenda, and that is to have his surrogate as head of the committee for the establishment of a War Crimes Court. Now, if you recall, Speaker Jonathan Kofa, or Councillor Kofa, during the administration of President Sirleaf, received quite a substantial amount of money, I think a little over $500,000, to prosecute individuals alleged to have been associated with an unsavory arrangement to concession out the Wologisi Mountain. Big Boy 1, Big Boy 2. Councillor, who is now sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department, was linked to that affair. But after, as they say, behold, a mountain labored and brought forth a molehill, there was so much money that went into prosecutorial efforts, but nothing was achieved. There were no prosecutions, and nobody was held to account.
Thank you. And we're going to talk more on that for the night. Let me get the opening from Madam Washington. You know, Madam Washington, just give us a background on how the TRC led to the establishment of War Crimes Court and where we are now, and then give us a brief background about that and why this appointment of Councillor, the appointment of an ED of this office is a make or break for you.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Part of the mandate of the TRC, as per the TRC Act, was that the Commission will recommend several accountability recommendations. And key amongst those accountability recommendations will be recommendations for prosecution for those found to be most liable for the carnage and what had happened in Liberia. You know, the conservative estimate of the death toll of the Civil War in Liberia is between 250,000 to 300,000. And so people committed the majority of those murders. People didn't just die, people didn't commit suicide. So when the TRC worked, at the end of its work, as per the mandate, we were supposed to make recommendations on a wide range of issues concerning Liberia. And one of those, like I stated earlier, was to make accountability recommendations. And the TRC came out with 209 recommendations that were subcategorized into 47 subcategories. And 50 persons were listed on the sanction list. So the sanction list is also an accountability listing, but it's the illustration listing, barring people from holding office because of the preponderance of evidence of the role, the negative role they play in the war. 98 persons in the TRC report were recommended for criminal prosecution. And those 98 persons, according to our process, were determined. We found that they bore most of the responsibility for what had happened in Liberia. And of course, 26 persons were, or 26 individuals were recommended for economic crimes investigation. 19 corporations were found liable under the economic crimes, recommendations, and 57 individuals and entities were recommended for further investigation, meaning that, our work, we had a time frame we work around. It was kind of short, and as we were working, even as we retreated from the public and went into private to write the final report, we were still getting information coming from the field. So those issues that we didn't have the time to thoroughly investigate and to do due diligence, we recommended in the report further investigation. And so this War Crimes Court, the War Crimes Court was one of the accountability recommendations that the TRC commissioners, or that the TRC recommended. And it has been 16 years. Yeah, it has been 16 years since the TRC released its final report on June 30th, 2009. It's been 16 years. And so this year, President Boycott, I think it was in March, when the Senate and the legislature, they all signed the resolution passing the War Crimes Code. And so President Boycott now is subsequently acting upon that recommendation. But what has happened here is that we see the process is not being done in a transparent and decent way. We see people who are conflicted, people who have special interests. We see them being the ones who now tend to be driving this process. It's a problem. For example, like my colleague John Stewart said, the recent, just 2 days ago, of Mr. Jonathan Massaquoi. In the first place, it's like he just popped out of nowhere, except that he was representing the alleged perpetrators who are after human rights advocates like myself to shut it down. But besides that, we don't know him for anything in transitional justice in Liberia. He was never active in the TRC process. He didn't take any interest. He didn't interest himself in any of the process. He was not involved in the civil society aspect of the human rights. He was not involved with the Human Rights Commission. He has not been involved with any human rights issue in Liberia. Like Commissioner Stewart said, he knows nothing about international law, international humanitarian law, nothing. So, and then all of a sudden, we have this guy on our hands as now the executive director of this proposed War Crimes Court Secretariat. What people need to understand is that someone was trying to make the argument on Facebook that, oh, he is not a prosecutor, he is only the executive director. No, the office, the Secretariat of the War Crimes Court sets the stage, puts in the mechanism and structure that the court and the rest of them will build upon to have, the prosecutions. So if the process starts to be flawed from the beginning, as early as it is, if the process is based on false premise, the rest of the process will be bogus. And that's my concern.
You are muted.
Thank you, Massa. Councillor Juba, let's walk through the legal part of the office of the War and Economic Crimes Court, and what really it's supposed to be doing here, and what it will be the role of Councillor Jonathan Massaquoi. Why would he be the one to make or break this thing if care is not taken? I want to hear your thoughts on, first of all, the background leading to President Boakar's that authority and the legality of this office, and what Councillor Massaquoi is supposed to be doing.
So Dennis, no one is questioning whether President Boakar has the legal authority to nominate and name people in his government. But what is troubling and what people are asking is that, is this a serious issue that President Walker intends to resolve? Does he really have interest in establishing a war and economic crime court? Is he really aware of the complexity and the difficulty that lies in the issue of establishing such a court and appointing someone who has, as the commissioners have said, have little or no zero knowledge of what the whole process is all about? He is not just the executive director, even though people may want it to sound like, he's just an administrator. He's not basically going to deal with anything legal. No, he has to liaise with the international community. His knowledge of understanding what international human rights law is important. His knowledge of understanding what the factual situation surrounding the establishment of the court and those victims, the people who are victimized due to the Liberian Civil War, has to be very clear and succinct. What I know about Councillor Massaquoi is that Councillor Massaquoi have filed a lawsuit against Madam Washington sometime in 2021, and got a default judgment. Now, I have been trying to research to find domestically what is Councillor Massaquoi's capability in handling criminal cases before our courts. I have not seen any case that he was part of that had to do with starting from the jury, the selection of a jury, onto a conviction of a criminal or an accused. I haven't seen that. So if, and what I understand from his background is that the President Walker may have picked him because Councillor Jonathan, what his last name? Councillor Jonathan is much more concerned, or his law office is much more. He worked with J. Fonati Kofa, Councillor Kofa, to ensure that Councillor Kofa is the winner in all of this, because if you follow, you will get to know that President Walker tried to appoint him as Minister of Justice. And I think there was a lot of cry as to whether or not this guy was qualified to work as Minister of Justice. It's not just being the executive director. It requires you understanding what the Rome Statute is all about. It requires you understanding what is the international criminal law is all about. It requires you understanding the Geneva Convention on war crime. It's a whole host of stuff that I personally believe that if you don't even have a domestic background in being able to prosecute a criminal matter before our criminal courts, how can you get involved with matters that are so international and so clear for the public? I think President Walker, I may be wrong, has no interest in establishment of the War Crime Court. I will also believe that the Speaker of the House also they don't have any interest in the War Crime Court, because Liberia has so many people who have participated in the legal process, and so many Liberians that were able to handle the TRC report and TRC investigation, so much so that trusted individual, respected individual who have been placed as executive director instead of someone who basically, as Massa said, maybe under the Cllr blue sky. Where is he from? What has he done? What is his record in terms of prosecuting a jury trial in any of the criminal courts in Liberia? I have not seen any.
Right, but let me ask you this, because what is Councillor Stewart, Councillor Massaquoi, supposed to do that's going to conflict? For instance, he's not going to be the one to pick anyone. He's not going to be judging people. He's not going to be the one. So what exactly is he doing? Because if you say, hey, he's from Fonati Kofa's office, so as a lawyer, you have the right, and I'm asking you this as a lawyer, right, to represent people. In fact, if you don't have a lawyer, the government will give you one. So will his appointment, or going against being a lawyer for someone who sued the TRC commissioner, will disqualify him? I mean, that's his job. You as a lawyer, you can even represent criminal. It doesn't mean that you are a criminal.
So this is the general thing I hear from people that are saying that lawyers can represent anybody. That's not true. You have an ethical responsibility to determine, after listening to the facts of your client, whether or not you wish to represent him. Because if take for example, Councillor Jonathan Massaquoi is now named as the executive director. He's not just the administrative officer; he runs the entire affairs of how that code is set up. It's a whole secretariat that he will head, which include being able to lay out the framework and how to proceed. If you don't understand what the framework entail, how can you help to lay out? Secondly, it's not that he is a lawyer representing Agnes Reed-Taylor. He also representing Mr. Jibril Massaquoi. Your choice of who you represent will determine whether you are conflicted or not. What if you know Mrs. Taylor, Agnes Reed-Taylor, she has had major association with MPFL, representing Mrs. Taylor, and people from the MPFL brought to court or brought before the war crime court. How will Councillor Massaquoi proceed? Even though you may say he's not a prosecutor, but he will have significant influence on how the court is run.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart, the Office of War Crime Court shall investigate, design, and prescribe the methodology, mechanism, and processes for the establishment of a special war crimes court for Liberia, as well as a national anti-corruption court for Liberia. You earlier spoke about what are some of your key reasons why you think Councillor Massaquoi is not fit? Because if it is because he representing someone who took Commissioner Washington to court, people may look at it and say, okay, he's just trying to wash his fellow commissioners back.
Are you serious?
Well, let me say one thing. I'm not a lawyer, but I understand that a lawyer is supposed to provide the best possible advice to his clients based on the facts in a particular case.
Okay.
In the case of Commissioner Washington, who has been falsely accused of having bribed witnesses or having has been falsely accused of having bribed witnesses, and particularly in the Agnes Reeves-Taylor trial, I would say that what on the basis of what fact, which facts has Councillor Massaquoi that will provide him grounds for instituting a defamation libel suit against Commissioner Washington? Is it not a fact that these people are associated with the horrors of the Civil War? Did Councillor Massa Washington sue, or did she bring a case against Agnes Reeves-Taylor? No, she did not. So the whole attempt is to stifle human rights defenders. More than that, you're talking about credibility. This is a man whose appointment was annulled, appointment as Justice Minister was annulled by the President based on concerns raised by the public. Do you think the international community has not paid heed to that? Do you think he has created an aura of credibility that international community will have confidence in to have him serve as in that position? I don't think so. Credibility is a key issue here. I don't think he has the credibility.
Do you know some of those concerns that were raised why he was not picked for Justice Minister, or why he was withdrawn? Do you know some of those concerns?
Well, the public was not comfortable with it, for one thing, and President Bokar may have his own reasons, but I suppose that because of the hue and cry against Councillor Massaquoi's appointment as Justice Minister, especially coming from the law firm of the Speaker of the House, influence peddling and all of that. All of these reasons contributed to, I believe, to the President's decision to annul his appointment as Justice Minister. Because it's the issue of credibility, and we should not forget that that this law firm, of which the Speaker heads, is a power broker in the country, and influence peddling. These are some of the issues we're talking about here. You know, I don't think Councillor Massaquoi has the requisite experience and all of that, as Councillor Jiwa has already pointed out, that to handle this. I would like to know how many cases has Councillor Massaquoi argued and defended successfully before the Supreme Court in his practice, in his entire practice as a lawyer. I would like to know how many cases has he won at the level of the Supreme Court. I don't think he can even point to 2 cases, 2 of such cases. So, and again, the issue is Councillor Massaquoi is conflicted, and that is a credibility issue. In the case of Jibril Massaquoi was here killing people in Monrovia, and he's conniving with Alan White. Alan White was serving as investigation court, and when Jibril Massaquoi should have been in a safe house in Freetown, he was here in Monrovia. He was here in Monrovia killing people at the Waterside Junction. There was a Sierra Leone fighter who Jibril Massaquoi killed that enraged all the fighters down there, and there is a magistrate, a lawyer, he was a police officer at the time. He later on, after the hostilities ended, he went to law school, became a lawyer, graduated from the law school, became a lawyer, and was appointed a magistrate. But he was assigned as a police officer, as a police sniper in the E.J. Roy building. And he came down from his perch to stop Jibril Massaquoi. And it was about that time, Yaka Koluba, who is now representative, arrived on the scene, having heard of the excesses that Jibril Massaquoi was committing at Waterside. There's the same Jibril Massaquoi man who Alan White defended and said that no, he was under UN protection in a safe house in Freetown. And as a result of such lies, Jibril Massaquoi was let off the hook in a finished court. But Jibril Massaquoi was here in Monrovia killing people. I know that for sure. There was a fighter, I don't live far from where the action was going on. There was a fighter right in my house, going to the front and coming back every day, called Raf. I was to tease him about going to the front every day, you know? And he mentioned all these things. And there are other witnesses who can attest that Jibril Massaquoi was at the waterfront killing people. And he did so to spy on Taylor. Alan White had a mission for Jibril Massaquoi to spy on Taylor so he could use the evidence that Jibril Massaquoi would gather to later prosecute Taylor. And now Alan White is using, is collaborating with other individuals, and allegedly including Jonathan Massaquoi, to head this process and thwart the course of justice. And all of this, Alan White's fingers are in it, and is in it basically because of the money. Alan White is a lobbyist looking for money. He was a lobbyist, if you recall, during the run-up to elections. In that period, there were reports that President Bouaka, at the time a former vice president, he traveled to Accra to a meeting to meet with Alexander Cummings. And in that meeting, as the story went, Mr. Cummings had offered the former vice president at the time $5 billion to cede the prime seat of to give up his quest as president, to have Cummings run as president. And according to the story, Bouaka refused. And within that moment, Alan White walked into that meeting unsolicited, appealing to the vice president, former vice president, to accept the $5 million offer Cummings to decline to run as president, and instead have Cummings run as president on the ticket. You know, so Alan White's fingers in all of this and creating all kinds of problems. He's associated with this international justice group that is doing nothing in America, lying on people, lying on Commissioner Washington, said that she lied on Senator Diabo. I was commissioner responsible for Riverses, Grand Bassa, and Sino counties. I had my oversight, and I visited those counties regularly. And there were hearings that were held, and we interviewed witnesses. There was a particular witness that and they said that Senator Diabo, Massa Washington paid a witness, this young fella who was the brother of a girl who was raped and died as a result of the injuries suffered from the rape, that the line that Commissioner Washington paid her. But there were other people who testified that Senator Diabo, at the time known as Marcus Davis, took a man to the creek, demanding the man to give his steam mill and kept pushing him to the depths until the water had reached to the man's nostrils, where if he had been pushed 1 inch further, he would have drowned. He gave up and gave the steam mill to Marcus Davis, Senegal dear boy. So what are you saying? Kunti Kamara, who was a member of Ulimo, known as Massaquoi, chopped up the living body of a teacher, Mr. Indimini, the husband of Mary Indimini, who was a teacher in Foya. And what was his crime? Because he told the NGOs that came who looted the hospital, that Ulimo looted the hospital. He was killed. His body was dismembered, put into pieces, put in a wheelbarrow, and given to Mary Indimini to cook, to eat. And these vicious lies are being perpetrated, that these people were coached to lie. Who are these people? They're just after the money. Mr. Allenway is just interested in the money. That's all he's after. He's not interested in Liberians. He's not interested in securing justice for Liberians. Because if he were interested in securing justice for Liberians, he would not have let Jubi Massaquoi out of the safe house to come to Monroe to kill people only for his personal glory, to gather evidence to use against Taylor to prosecute Charles Taylor.
Thank you.
These are the points we're making, and people associated with this, we must flag it out. So Jonathan Massaquoi will be a wrong fit for the court.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm coming to you, Commissioner Washington, former commissioner. Who is your ideal candidate for this role as ED for the War Crimes Court?
Well, there are, I won't say, but there are a number of qualified, competent Liberians.
No, I mean the characteristic of that person. I want Commissioner Washington to address that. What kind of person do you think is ideal for this role?
Okay, in the first place, not only the executive director who's going to be heading this War Crimes Court or Secretariat, but any staff, especially a senior staff, who is going to work with this project, one must be someone of high integrity and credibility. That's extremely important, because the matter of TRC, War Crimes Court, these are all accountability or mechanism, transitional justice form of mechanism. They are all integrity-driven institutions and integrity-driven projects. So you must have people of the utmost integrity. And these are people who were not involved in the war. They did not participate anyway, whether they were just executive members, whether they didn't go on the front. These people must be clean. Secondly, they must be people who are known to not have violated the public trust, meaning that maybe they worked in government before in the past, but they didn't steal the public fund, they didn't cause harm to the public, and they did not violate the public trust. So the number one credential for this kind of integrity-driven position is that the people who will be driving this process must be people of high integrity. Two, they must be people who are educated, at least knows about transitional justice issues. They know about War Crimes Court, they know about TRC, so they may not be super experts, on the topic, but it must be people who know about the topic because they have followed the issues over time. And they must have the genuine interest in justice for the victims, because this process is all victim-driven. This process is an offshoot of the TRC process, which was victim-driven. This process is all victim-driven. The War Crimes Court is all about bringing justice to the victims. It's all about validating the victims. After so many years, their voices were silent. This is the time. This is the time to validate the people of Liberia who are so victimized, to say, listen, we listen to your cries. We're now ready to do something about it. So that individual must be victim-driven in terms of his output, his action, and everything. And this individual must not be someone who is seen and who is perceived as being unfair or biased or partial. So let me tell you something. This is Jonathan Massaquoi, and I appreciate Councillor Jiwa. In fact, Councillor Jiwa is my lawyer in all of this Boca's lawsuit. I appreciate Councillor Jiwa. I appreciate my colleague John Stewart. And Stewart, all the bookers, for some reason, they choose me out of all of you on the TRC to lie on me all the time. It's because I'm very strong. I'm female. It's also a misogynistic thing, but they also know that I'm very strong. And so they think that they can silence me. But thank God, the extremity of the lies makes it so ridiculous. Nobody believes it because the evidence is all over the place. I'm from Bomi County. I barely know my village. I was born in Monrovia. I'm a Monrovia girl. John Stewart is saying he had oversight of Grand Bassa County in Riverside County. I've never been to any village in Grand Bassa except when the TRC was operating. So the extremity of the lies is so ridiculous, nobody believes it. So I'm not even bothered about that. But the point I want to make here, Dennis, is that Jonathan Massaquoi is not the proper fit for this position because he lacks the integrity right now. He lacks the moral integrity. He lacks the credibility. He lacks the education, knowledge, and experience to be able to do this job that Councillor J. West said. The executive director lays the foundation and the framework and the fundamentals upon which the entire process for the War Crimes Code will be built. So he is not just an administrator. So when you say, well, you know, no, he has to be all that. He has to be all that. And the key for me, the key thing here is he must be someone of high integrity. It's because we want this process to be fair, much as we want prosecution, much as we want justice for our people, but we want it to be fair because at the end of the day, at the bottom line of all of this is that we have to unite our people. And so you cannot run a process when you start off on a false start, you lie on people, you lack credibility, you hang with all the perpetrators, and then at the end of the day, you will go and be biased. And then what you do, you further divide our people. So even the so-called perpetrators who know that they committed crimes, they are not going to be humble and contrite because you're not fair in your process. So this is what happened. He is not only the lawyer for Agnes Taylor against me, which of course you all know the lawsuit is bogus, but he's also the lawyer for Agnes Taylor against Hassan Belete, okay, against Civita Maxima, the group that is actually bringing some decency and validation to Liberians. Because of Civita Maxima, Liberians have gained hope because they were able to prosecute or several other persons, including Kunte Kamara. Alan White has not prosecuted a single person. He's just passing all around the place trying to look for money because he's a lobbyist. That's what he does. Okay, so this Jonathan Massaquoi is lawyer for all the perpetrators. So the very people that are supposed to be coming to the War Crimes Court, the very people that his process is going to be prosecuting are the people that he's defending against human rights, against human rights, against human rights advocates. So it's not just
that's a key point. That's a key point, Madam Washington. You stress.
Exactly.
One second. I just want to add to what you're saying. You added high integrity. The president should be of high integrity. So that implies that Councillor Massaquoi lacks that. Is that what you're saying?
As far as I'm concerned, he lacks that because you know why? The reason I say he lacks that, because right now he knows that Agnes Taylor or case lawsuit against me was bogus. He knows that they never served me. Again, I don't want to go into details of the case because we have filed our bill of error. It's before the Supreme Court, and I want to respect the court. This is why I have, since they came out with a bogus ruling against me, I have not commented. I have intentionally kept quiet upon the advice of my counsel because I want to respect. I respect the Supreme Court. So until the Supreme Court can go into the case and come up with a final ruling, I will not comment in depth on it. But Jonathan Massaquoi knows that the lawsuit that Agnes Taylor brought against me is bogus, but he took it anyway. And they all kind of maneuvering to root against me in my absence. They root against me. They didn't go to court to fight a case against me, but they root against me, they say, in absentia. This is the same Jonathan Massaquoi, who is also a lawyer again against the same Agnes Taylor, who's suing everybody. Agnes Taylor is suing all vocal justice advocates. So she sued me, then she sued Hassan Belete, who is the lawyer, Jonathan Massaquoi. She sued Civita Maxima, who is the lawyer, Jonathan Massaquoi. Jabril Massaquoi. Her name, her nom de guerre, aka nom de guerre, was Angel Gabriel. When he got ready to kill people, he wore masks. He wore ski masks, and he called himself Angel Gabriel. Okay, and as Angel Gabriel, he felt that he had the authority of life and death. He could decide whether his victims will live or not. He called himself Angel Gabriel during the war. This same Jonathan Massaquoi, who Joseph Walker has named to be the executive director of this court, he is the lawyer now for Jibril Massaquoi, Angel Gabriel. And the connection here is Alan White. Okay, so Jonathan Massaquoi works with Alan White, and everybody knows that Alan White is a lobbyist. Alan White has a registered lobbying company in America. He's not hiding it. Of course, as a lobbyist, it's legal. It's legal to be a lobbyist. But then you cannot be a lobbyist looking for money all over the place, and then you want to be a war crimes code man and prosecuting people. It's a huge conflict. So this is where we are with this Massaquoi guy. Never mind that Massaquoi knows nothing about transitional justice. He knows nothing about international human rights law. He knows nothing about human rights law. Nothing. It's a political appointment. Alan White wants to come from outside and come to the Liberian people and engage in neo-colonialism and hijack the process. He's looking for money, yes. Alan White wants the war crimes code, but he wants the war crimes code because he wants to use it to make his money. The rest of us want war crimes code because we want justice for our people. Because we, the Liberians, our people were killed, our mothers were raped, our cousins were raped, our ancient stomachs were open, our young cousins were turned into child soldiers today, the Azogos. So that's why we want justice. We want justice because we want to be able to give our people some form of reprieve. Alan White wants the war crimes code so that he can make his money. This is what it's all about. Jonathan Massaquoi is one of the Alan White boss on Alan White team. It's a huge conflict. Jonathan Massaquoi must be recalled from that position, or he must do the honorable thing and resign.
Thank you. Councillor Joe, you wanted to come in. Let me give you the opportunity before I ask my next question.
I wanted to just add, Councillor Massaquoi is not just a lawyer for the Taylor family or Agnes Taylor, not just a lawyer against Hassan Bility. Mr. Councillor Massaquoi is the attorney, in fact, of Gabriel Massaquoi. What I mean is that while Gabriel Massaquoi is in some country resting and enjoying himself, Councillor Massaquoi is functioning as a lawyer and as the person who filed the suit in his name as the attorney, in fact. How much money is he asking for? He's asking for $50 million. Against the human rights organization that he said allegedly formulated evidence against him. Gabriel Massaquoi does not intend to come to Liberia to prosecute any case. He had designated Councillor Massaquoi as his attorney, in fact, as his agent, to sue any human rights organization or any human rights person who will speak against him. Now, who is the winner in all of this? This will be Councillor Massaquoi. This will also be Councillor Funati Kofa, the Speaker of the House. And this would be, I would surmise that, President Boakai. Because you cannot just go out and fishing for anybody. The President Boakai, for the sake of clarity and transparency, contact the civil society organization in Liberia before appointing Councillor Massaquoi. No.
Councillor Joe, I want you to go back to that because the legal thing. Jibril Massaquoi is not in Liberia, and you said Councillor Jonathan Massaquoi is his agent. I want you to explain that a little bit more to someone who, like me, it's not legal matter.
So Jonathan,
first of all, if we can go back and just talk a little bit about why that Kavita Maxima, if I'm pronouncing that right, was sued.
So according to Mr. Gabriel Massaquoi, evidence were cooked up by Hassan Bility.
Yeah, they lie on him.
They lie on him. They coached witnesses. In fact, before I left Liberia, I saw in the newspaper a complaint that Councillor Vodia has filed against Hassan Bility and those he claimed were telling lies on people. Now, Gabriel Massaquoi, on technical ground, not that he did not commit a crime, on technical ground and on affidavit supplied by Mr. Alan White to the court, that in fact, Jibril Massaquoi was never anywhere around Liberia because he was under his custody. Based upon that, the court went ahead and dismissed the claim against Jibril Massaquoi. Right after that, Jibril Massaquoi contacted Councillor Jonathan Massaquoi and named and designated him as an agent. Who is an agent legally?
Right.
An agent is a person appointed or designated to act for the principal as if the principal would have acted for himself. As if the principal, if the principal was to buy a piece of land, that agent has the authority as the attorney, in fact, to act for the principal to buy. In this case, Mr. Massaquoi Jibril Massaquoi is filing a lawsuit for $50 million at the civil law court. He designated Councillor Massaquoi as his lawyer, also as the agent, to prosecute anyone who may have testified or created evidence against him. So Councillor Massaquoi, Jonathan Massaquoi, is also a lawyer and a beneficiary in this lawsuit that is pending before the civil law court. So it's not an issue of, oh, no, you defended the guy. No, he is also an agent acting for the principal as if the principal would have acted the way that he's acting. Sue for $5 million. Get a punitive damage and get a general damage against anyone who concocted or formed evidence against me. Is this person not conflicted?
Exactly.
He is terribly conflicted. The President Bouakai really have interest in ensuring that war crime code proceeds in Liberia with someone who is an agent wishing to recover $50 million for anyone who spoke or gathered evidence against him. Hassan Belede, for example, Warner in the Switzerland, for example. What is this intended to do? Councillor Massaquoi and his group are intending to shut down every and anyone who speaks human rights. And he's the one who will be the executive director.
So let me ask you, Mr. Stewart, I want you to comment. What do you think is driving this decision of President Bouakai then? Because when we set up the War Crimes Court thing, we were all clapping for him. What is driving this decision to appoint Councillor Jonathan Massaquoi as the czar for this office?
I think there are special interests that are driving it. As a matter of fact, I was surprised, taken aback by the fact that there was no public vetting done for this Jonathan Massaquoi. Before commissioners were appointed, after the Accra Comprehensive Agreement was signed and the decision was made to establish a TRC, the public was requested to make nominations of individuals they thought could serve only as commissioners of the TRC. And the public did. There were over 20 names that were sent to the head of state at the time, Judith Bryan, and they were vetted by civil society and international organizations as well. And this was to ensure that the process would be free and unfettered, fair, and it will not be manned by individuals with whose characters were compromised. But in the case of this Jonathan Massaquoi, to head this office that is so essential, that is so key and crucial to the delivery of justice, how come there's no vetting done for this individual? But this is not the first instance. We had an instance of Councillor Charles Gibson, who was appointed as Justice Minister. The public raised a lot of issues. The president was forced to withdraw his nomination. So I think his nomination to serve was driven by special interest, buttressed by the fact that he's a lawyer from the law firm of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the head of a branch of government. And we know what kind of clout that carries in the courts as a lawyer representing a lawyer from the International Law Group, owned primarily, or in which the Speaker of the House is a majority shareholder, or probably one of the major shareholders. You understand? We know the clout that it carries in the courts, the intimidation of judges and magistrates. That a lawyer from the law firm, and I can point out instances where lawyers representing his law firm, from his law firm, representing a client, filed bogus documents in the court, saying that a bogus document saying that this document is an agreement signed by one individual, and then probated the probated copy carries another individual, submitted by lawyers from the international law group, with the intention to defraud and mislead the court into making wrong judgments. These are some of the things we're talking about. The clout that it carries, and we know about influence peddling. Senator Vanny Sherman, former Senator Vanny Sherman, we know the clout that he exercised as a senator. His law firm, he was a consultant to almost all the big corporations in town. We know a big bar one, big bar two. We know how much money was spent to prosecute these people, and in which the Speaker of the House, the now Speaker of the House, Jonathan Kufuor, was the lead lawyer, was the chief prosecutor, and there was no prosecution despite the fact that over $100,000 was spent on that. There was no prosecution. A mountain labor and brought forth a molehill. We're talking about credibility here. Why there was no vetting of this individual? There was no public vetting of this individual. He comes from the law firm of the Speaker of the House.
And that's it.
Like I said, it's influence peddling, and it should not be tolerated.
Thank you. Before I go to Madam Washington, let me go back to you, Councillor Jewett, because there is this, Councillor, it means that Councillor Funati Kufa still has connection with this law office. The legislature, that's the one that is setting up, or they have to making these laws for the War Crimes Court, right? So there could be incentives that hey, if we have this, people will hire us from. I mean, there is this legal world divestiture, or that's how you call it. So how is that? I mean, I'm trying to understand it. I mean, how can we operate in this kind of scenario, right? Where you have your law office, you are making the laws for this thing, and then someone from your office is the head. How does that work? Is it legal to do?
You know, Councillor Funati Kufa is, as we speak, actively practicing law, even though he's the Speaker of the House.
Is that legal?
There is no law that prevents you from practicing while you're in such position, but the ethics in being someone who has integrity, you will step aside to ensure that, listen, the same number of companies that Councillor Vanny Sherman were representing when you were the chair of the judiciary in the Senate, Councillor Funati Kufa had just embraced all of those companies. And if you follow the quote-unquote testimony that Mr. White and others had before Congressman Smith, you'll find that they are asking for between $36 to $50 million. Would it not be nice for the Speaker of the House to have one of his boys in that seat to ensure that the $50 million, there's something around it? Why is Councillor Funati Kufa involved in this one? Why is his law office involved? Why did President Bouaka, he was integrity driven, so much so that why did he not contact the Bar Association? How's about the Female Lawyer Association? Who did President Bouaka contact? We know there is a relationship here. There is a.
The same question I asked Mr. Stewart. What is driving this decision of President Bouaka? Because it's, I mean, if the legislature will create laws and then they are someone from the office of the Speaker is benefiting, isn't that, okay, let's bring this thing because when they're time to hire lawyers, then they will hire my lawyers.
Let me just add something. I sat and listened to Mr. John Molu on Spoon Talk. John, if you remember, there was a leaked video with Mr. White thanking President Bouaka for ensuring that the war crime code thing starts. Mr. Molu said that absolutely President Bouaka has no interest in the war crime code. It was because of that the video was leaked. He also went further to say that absolutely, Nyobi Kanga Lawrence, the pro tem, has no interest. And on to the Speaker of the House. Now, why are they pushing this? Because the government may be benefited some way, somehow from our international friends. But put somebody there who has zero integrity. Put somebody there who knows nothing about international human rights law. Put somebody there who will have problem even approaching the international community. If it doesn't work, our money will come. That's the mentality.
Commissioner Washington, are you thinking about this the same way I'm thinking about it? Because there's a web here, right? What is Mr. I'm not asking you because you were in his head, but what is he thinking? What were some of the thoughts you think the president put into this to have Councillor Massaquoi? Does he really know him?
I will buttress the point that Councillor Jiwa has just stated so eloquently, but I will expand on it a little bit. From my understanding now, and I've spoken to, since all of this shenanigans been going on now, I've spoken to a couple of broadcast insiders. I've also spoken to some of Alan White's insiders, and I've spoken to some of Fonati Kofa's insiders. And the overwhelming opinion or perspective that I've gathered is that, just as Councillor Jiwa has said, President Borka has zero interest in seeing this War Crimes Code 3 thing go to. As a matter of fact, somebody close to his office said he actually made a comment and thinks that this whole process is a humbug. The humbugging him. It's a nuisance. I don't have time for this TRC War Crimes Code thing, but these people are pressuring me. So who these people are, we can all suggest or speculate who these people are. So bottom line is the president does not seem to have any genuine interest in seriously implementing the TRC recommendations, especially the accountability recommendations, which is the War and Economic Crimes Court. But what he's doing is that he's playing along. So then you talk about a web. Of course, it's a web. And the spider in this web here is Alan White. Alan White is the key here. So Alan White is the spider who's weaving this web, and he's dotting the dot. He's connecting everything. He's dotting the dot. So he graduates himself to President Borka in the first place. In 2017, when the 2017 elections were going on, according to Prince Johnson, who spoke on open video, and we have that video, it's been circulating all over the place. Funny the other day. Alan White, who has been a long-term lobbyist for Benana UA. In fact, Alan White was the one who got UA and some other Taylor people off the sanction list post-war. When Taylor became president in 2007, was it 2007 or 1997? 1997. When Taylor became president in 1997, there were a host of his officials who were on sanction list, including Benana UA. So Alan White, he graduated himself. He contacted them. They did not know him. He contacted them and said, I can get you off the sanction list. And of course, he worked with Mr. UA, and he got a whole lot of money to get him off the sanction list. Okay, so Alan White, he's been doing his lobbying thing here for a long time. In the 2017 elections, I'm not speculating. I am not saying they say. We listened to Prince Johnson, and we also got credible information. Alan White proposed to Prince Johnson and Benana UA to meet with him in Accra, Ghana with the team. Prince Johnson carried somebody, Benana UA carried, Alan White carried his Peking who I know. When they got there, Alan White said to them, and he said to Prince Johnson, he was proposing to Prince Johnson for Prince Johnson to work with him and Benana UA so they can form a ticket, so that Benana UA would be president and Prince Johnson would be the vice president, because Prince Johnson was popular. He had Nima County behind him. And Prince Johnson said on the video, he turned to the guy, the Liberian guy who is Alan White's, big boy. He turned to him, I will not call him, he turned to him and said, oh, you hear your countryman, Jada myself. You want me, a countryman, to be vice president under a Congo man, Benana UA? So if I got the most votes. If I can deliver in my country and make your win, why can't I be president and Benana, you will be my vice president? So that's how Prince Joseph scattered the meeting, and they didn't conclude that meeting, and they left. Now, this is the same Alan White who is pushing for war crimes code forever and ever. So did Alan White not know that Prince Johnson is in the TRC report as the most notorious perpetrator? So how is it Alan White, who's been calling for this war crime code now, wanted for Prince Johnson to form a ticket with Benin Ayure? Because you know what? Alan White thought it would suit his purpose. So since Benin Ayure is his lobbyist for UA and he's known UA for all these years, if UA can be president, then Alan White, can be the official lobbyist for the Republic of Liberia and make his millions of dollars on the blood and sweat and tears of our people. When that didn't work, excuse me, Dennis, when that didn't work, last year, he snuck, forced himself on the communist campaign. And I have a copy of that document. Okay, he signed a lobbying contract with Cummings to lobby with Cummings, taking him to Congress and other places. He even held a dinner for Cummings for, I think it was 180,000 or something. But I got the receipt. I got the lobbying contract. I can send it to you after this show. So the same Alan White, who is all over the place looking for money, is the same Alan White who is working with Jonathan Massaquoi. It's the same Alan White who is working with Jerome Further and all these discredited people. He's the same one who wants to head the War Crimes Code project. And we're saying no. Alan White wants War Crimes Code because he wants to make his money. We want War Crimes Code because we want accountability for our people. We want justice for our people who were killed. And this is the web here. And Alan White is the spider here, weaving this web.
Thank you. Much has been said about Alan White. So
we've been on this journey together for a long, long time. And I wanted to thank you for the phone call. And I just wanted to ask you again, why did you want me to come over here? Well,
you've been a good friend of Liberia. And I don't see it just as a duty. I see it as a concern for a country that you have interest in, and you pursue that. And we believe your concerns are genuine, and so we've opened the door for us to work together. That's why we call you.
Well, Mr. President, I can't tell you how many.
Your concerns, they're genuine.
It was all a show. It was all a manipulated show. In the first place, Dennis, when I watched that video, I called insiders to boycott, people who very close to him, and I said, what? You're chasing Alan White? And the person said, no, Mas, you don't understand. Alan White have been behind us for the longest to make an appointment for him to see the president. The president finally agreed. He had met Boyka before, but that was his first time meeting. That was the first official meeting now. He had been pushing for this appointment with Boyka. So when he finally met Boyka now, he got people video recording them. Then he asked Boyka, why did you call me here? And I mean, it's diplomacy. The president is not going to say, oh, but you're the one who said you wanted to see me. So Alan White being a crook, okay, he pulled that number and said, oh, Mr. President, why you sent for me? No. You have been chasing Joseph Human Boyka for this meeting forever and ever. And so he told his people, say, you're Dr. White, I will see him. This is the kind of person we're dealing with. And Liberians are joking with it. In the first place, Dennis, why should Alan White come from outside and come to impose himself on us? Alan White is not working with any other person besides he handpicked people that he can manipulate. How does Alan White, a stranger who has no never stream buried in Liberia, who does not have a single relative who was victimized and brutalized in Liberia, how does Alan White, how is it that we are battling this man for our own project? How can the president or Joseph Boyka not see this? How can Joseph Boyka, Sylvester Grispe, Nathaniel Kwapo, who was executive director of the TRC, Kofi Wooston close to Boyka, how can all these people, Young Likanga Lawrence, this Fonati Kofa, how can all of them sit there and allow this kind of thing to happen? That Alan White will come from outside and hijack our process and manipulate our process to make his money? And then in the process, he's trying to discredit decent people like me and other human rights advocates who have worked so hard for our country. How is this happening? This can never happen in any other country. It can never happen anywhere else. What Alan White looking for behind Liberia? Alan White must leave Liberia alone.
Thank you. The name Alan White has surfaced most of the plenty time during the Weah administration. He was also accused of being behind the sanction list, which many Liberians or a good number of Liberians celebrated. So is this Alan White guy, kind of bittersweet? Because at the time they say he was behind this sanction list, people were celebrating the list, right? Is it because he was right and now
I've
he's
never
wrong?
celebrated Alan White because I knew him.
Dennis,
I've never celebrated Alan White because I know everything he was doing was not genuine. He was doing it for self-interest.
Dennis, you also said that Alan White arranged a meeting for Mr. Weir to talk to President Cllr, former President Cllr. So I mean, what is important to understand is that, as Commissioner Washington said, what is the real interest of Mr. White? You know, if you just watch the testimony, there was one of the representatives who said, who had to ask questions like, I don't understand how all the wild allegations are being made without a single piece of evidence. That representative said, I will propose sending question to the group, because almost all the people that Mr. White has sitting down by him were against any other person except Mr. White. So is this the reason why, or is there a 56 million or 54 million to be appropriated by Congress? I think what the human rights organization need to do is to ensure that Congress as a body receive a written documentation from the human rights organization that this group is standing against.
Right. And that's where I was going now. Where do we go from here? What is the future of War Crimes Court in Liberia? Let me start with you, Mr. Stewart.
Well, let me say the future of the War Crimes Court in Liberia would be imperiled by having Mr. Alan White manipulate and direct the functions of the court. Now, let us not forget, Alan White is a military officer in the U.S. Army. Allegedly have been involved with cloak and dagger operations in places around the world. Why is it that he wants to control our process? I can recall that during our process, at the initial stages of the TRC, there was a former U.S. Army major who wanted to be executive secretary of the TRC, one Charles Pitchford, a former major, Marine, a former Marine, a major in the U.S. military, wanted to serve as general secretary of the TRC. Why do you think? But he was rejected. Now you have Mr. Alan White trying to insert himself as a principal player in the War Crimes Court. And to tell you the truth, if Mr. White will be allowed by President Buckeye, as the congressman said, Congressman Smith said, he made a remark that Alan White had been appointed as an advisor, had been appointed by President Buckeye as an advisor. Mm-hmm. And that says a whole lot. And so in particular, I feel the obligation to speak out against this, because the future of the court will be imperiled. The future of the hope that victims have in the process that they will receive justice will be thwarted. Now, mind you, there have been some prosecutions outside of Liberia, outside Liberian jurisdiction, in foreign courts of war crimes perpetrators. Now, if these people can be tried in foreign courts and brought down guilty, how about us Liberians? How about us Liberians? Do we need to have an ex-U.S. Army colonel standing over and directing our protests? Do we need it? We do not need it.
So what are you going to do now, Mr. Stewart? What do you want to happen?
Want to see the selection of a director, as we in the initial stages, done on a transparent basis. This was not transparent. I recall that during the TRC process, that was the first TRC that was named. After the Accra Comprehensive Peace Talks, there was the first TRC that was named, but it was disbanded. And why was it disbanded? It was disbanded on grounds that they were not vetted by the public. They had not gone through public vetting. And so they were disbanded. and new nominees. The list of new nominees were received and were vetted publicly by international organizations, by Liberian civil society organizations, and before the head of state, Judith Bryant, made a choice to pick 9 commissioners, 9 individuals out of a list of 15, I think, that was submitted to him, a final list of 15 that was submitted to him. He had to choose 9, and we were selected as the 9 individuals to serve on that commission. One commissioner left, who is Bishop Cllr, Methodist Bishop Cllr, left to take an assignment and left with 8 commissioners. So why is it that for such an important post, there will be no public vetting?
Thank you.
There will be no public vetting. Is it one of the fiascos that we're seeing in recent times? Remember the case of the yellow machines, a fiasco? Was there any vetting done for that? As to whether was there any due diligence done? I said no, because if there any due diligence was done, public officials, the official spokesperson of the government, the Minister of Information, would not have come back to say there was no deal done when the Minister of State, Opophilia, had said there was a deal done. So we are worried that all kinds of influences are being brought to bear on President Bokar. Unwholesome influences that led him into making the appointment of Jonathan Massaquoi. There was another case of the Minister of Labor who was appointed, and the civil society, some organizations came out to point out that the Labor Minister had been sanctioned by the Supreme Court. That the proposed justice minister, he was proposed as justice minister, he had been sanctioned by the Supreme Court for eating clients' money. So, what are we seeing? One misstep after the other. This is the grave misstep, and I think President Bokar should reconsider, because to maintain Jonathan Massaquoi as head of this proposed secretariat to head the War Crimes Code would be a disaster. He would not enjoy the confidence of people. More besides, additionally, he would not enjoy the confidence of the international community, on whose support Liberia will be counting on to fund this court. You know.
Thank you.
And there was a comment. There was a comment made by one of the. But there was a comment made by one of the speakers during the hearing that there were organizations making allegations against human rights defenders and advocates which were unfounded. They were not proven. They were just allegations. Unproven allegations, wild speculations. And unfortunately, some of these wild allegations and lies are coming from the former chairman of the TRC, Jerome Verdier. It's so disappointing. It's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate.
Thank you. Thank you. While you were talking, I just received a text from Jerome Verdier, Councillor Jerome Verdier. He said, "Good evening. It is my information from on the ground that I, Jerome Verdier, was behind the appointment of Councillor Massaquoi, who was twice rejected as Minister of Justice and Solicitor General, as Executive Director of the Office of War and Economic Crimes, is grossly unfounded. I was as surprised as the public of Massaquoi's appointment, which was done without my knowledge, consent, or consultation in any way. My opinion was never sought nor offered in this regard. Thanks and have a blessed weekend." Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Between the Headlines. I'm in conversation with Councillor Jerome Verdier, Councillor Frederick Jewe, former Commissioner Massa, Amelia, Washington, and also former Commissioner John H.T. Stewart. We are discussing the appointment of Councillor Jonathan Massaquoi as the Executive Director of the Office of War Crimes Code. If you want to join the conversation, please call 605-313-6004. The code is 791403#. Madam Washington, I want to also ask you the same question. What next? What can we do next, and what's the future of the TRs of the WCC with what you are saying?
What we are going to do next is when I say we, I mean the human rights community, the Liberia human rights community, and also some of our international partners. We have been we have been holding meetings to address this, because this is completely unacceptable, and we have resolved to initiate series of actions towards this. The President Bokar, is going to hear from us. This is completely unacceptable. Alunwa is going to hear from us. Like I said before, have people who die in the war, brothers die in the war, cousins. Alan White does not have a single relative that he can show me was a victim of that war. So we're going to fight. We're going to fight for our country. We're going to fight for our process. And having this interview is one of the mediums, but it's because we don't want to show our, like people say, we don't want to show our hair ahead of time. We don't want people to preempt us. So I'm not going to disclose here all of our strategies and stuff that we have discussed. But one thing I want for Alan White, President Boyka, and all the charlatans to understand is that this is unacceptable. We're not going to accept it. And Alan White, I'm using this medium to tell you you need to stop empowering the pathological liar, Avi Smith and others, to lie on people. You've come to our country. You say you want to do this. You don't want to work with us, but you want to discredit the best of us. We represent our people. We represent the best of Liberia. Our people know us. They trust us. It's because we have a history. We have a track record of decency and credibility. And Alan White, you cannot destroy. You cannot change it. So you need to stop. You need to stop empowering Jerome Vader and Avi Smith to lie on us and hold out the rubbish, because it's not helping you. We know it's you. It's not helping you. There's a direct message to Mr. Alan White. You got to fight on your hands, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. Before I bring in the callers, Councillor Jewett, I want you to, how do we move forward? You said President Boyka is not interested in war crimes code. I mean, that's tough.
I think the human right, John Stewart, John Molu, who much more closer to him, said that on Spontalk. I was just repeating what he said. I think the human rights organization, instead of having a few people sitting down in Washington, D.C. and trying to discredit people, must organize themselves to the point of making a statement at the American Embassy, making a statement at the European Union, making a statement at Congress to ensure that Mr. White and those who support him are not just interested in what human rights are.
Making a statement at Capitol Hill. In Nairobi.
All those places, and ensure that President Boyka withdraw the appointment. This councillor, Jonathan Massaquoi, is a player and a beneficiary. He is clearly an agent of Mr. Gibra Massaquoi, having filed a $50 million suit as the lawyer and as the agent for someone who Liberians have complained of killing the family members.
Thank you.
Is this the same man who we had the war crime code as the executive director? I think the world need to hear from the other side.
Thank you. Let me bring in our callers now. Our first caller is Evans Morris. Evans is a lawyer follower here. He also a panelist on Point. Evans, what says thou? 1 minute, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. John, and hello to the former commissioner, Mr. Stewart, and of course, Mrs. Washington, and our legal expert, Councilman Greenwood.
Evans, can you check your voice is not clear? Can you make some adjustment?
All right, you getting me now?
Yeah, that's better. What?
Yeah, I was using my earphone, but I was saying hello to the former commissioner, Mr. Stewart, and Mrs. Washington, and our legal expert, Mr. Councilman Jewett. I'm ecstatic for the show. I was so excited to have this panel, tonight. I have a few questions for them. I think anybody who watched the TRC, knows that it should be a part of the War and Economic Crimes Code. The recommendation, or maybe some consultation with those commissioners will be helpful to the court. But as it stands right now, I'm not sure, a lot of them are still alive. I know Cllr was there. Umusila, I think the late, if he's not, maybe he's not even late, but Reverend Coleman, I think Sheikh Kafuma died. So I don't know if Ms. Washington can tell us if they're still in touch with some of the former commissioners and if they're still passionate about bringing justice to Liberians, and if they'll be willing to, consultate with the court if they were asked to do so. But of course, we have the towering figure of Mr. Jerome Verdi, who has been, many people think has been compromised and has lost some credibility. Would his cooperation with the court be saying that something that is, maybe not as credible if he was there to to consult with the court, having such close ties with Alan White. So the thing with the guy that's Massaquoi, Massaquoi, the reality is that he's going to set the scope for this case. So time frame is an important part of it. What kind of crimes will be prosecuted, is another important part of it. So he does have enormous power, even though he's not going to be the one prosecuting these individuals. But having a scope that is broad is going to be the best fit for Liberia. But if you have a more narrow scope, it excludes a lot of charges. So that's a very important decision that he's going to make. So for me, my main question here is to the two commissioners, if they were asked to cooperate with this case, this court as is currently constituted under Massaquoi, are they willing to participate?
Thank you.
And that's my question today. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me bring on a second caller here. Please take notes. I'm taking notes as well. 612 area code, your name and where you calling from.
This is Terry calling from Minnesota.
Go ahead, Terry, you're live.
Yeah, so I just got two questions. One is my first question would be, do they have any credibility internationally that will make the United States government to trust them?
Who's the they? Who's the them? Who's the they?
I'm talking about the commissioner on the panel tonight.
To trust them on what?
To trust them by contributing to the World Economic Crime Code, because from my observation, or the international community or America that is trying to finance this process have to have some level of credibility in the people that want the contract, because I kept hearing them saying that the man wants the money. So what do they want to? Don't they want money too? Also, so if the American government is going to give you money, they have to know your credibility as computer or Alan White have credibility that the whole world know about from Sierra Leone when he persecuted the crimes that were committed against humanity in Sierra Leone. So they have that record.
Thank you.
So that is what I'm asking. Do they have the credibility internationally to be able to match out Alan White, or are they just raising allegations? The last one is the allegations that Alan White is raising against them. Are they true? Do they have any fact? Because I hear Alan White spewing a lot of stuff.
Like what? What is this? What is Alan White saying against them? Do you know?
Well, for her, she already said that Alan White have been spewing stuff against them.
Okay, thank you.
She herself said it. I was just listening. So, are they proving, and can they be proving? And all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me take our next caller here. We have 3 more callers. Kalabo Gonglo, you're live. Kalabo, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Dennis. Fantastic discussion. I'm quite happy to see the 3 panelists before you tonight. I think fundamentally they are discussing serious issue here. I wish you were elevating the discussion maybe the Top Talking Thursday on one of the main shows as opposed to on the Saturday. But here is what I will propose. Our listener Council Stewart talking about series of things they could do. I think one of the things they could do is to basically write the danger Jonathan Massaquoi poses to the process of fairness. I mean, when I listen to Council Joe explaining what Antonio Ifad means, it is a more serious issue. You just need to educate the public to know this guy is actually Jonathan Massaquoi in Liberia. I mean, Jonathan Massaquoi is AKA Gabriel Massaquoi also under the law. These facts need to just be explained in layman terms to the public and go to the legislature, the Liberian Senate, and make the case. Go to the House of Representatives. You don't have to go individually. You can even just write a communication that can be put on a House floor or that can be put on the Senate floor. Mr. Stewart is in Monrovia. He can do the footwork by personally appearing, probably to deliver and have behind-the-scenes discussion. And the same communication can be sent to the Congress office. There are level-headed people sitting now as technicians behind these congressmen. If they explain the role of Alan White and the role of Senator Massaquoi and why Congressman Chris Smith should not support a process that involves Senator Massaquoi, I think they will have a second thought. People tend to be open-minded here. I believe Chris Smith's office, he's not going to read the letter first. Somebody in his office will read it and then briefing on it. That would be serious stuff. I think they should do that.
Thank you.
You know, on our closing argument recently, I made argument against Jonathan Massaquoi. I don't know him, but the fact that this guy was withdrawn from being the justice minister for whatever presidential reason was, a racist red flag.
Thank you.
The fact that you are representing Agnes Cllr, Gabriel Massaquoi, the fact that he's even leading the process to file lawsuit against advocates, you know, for me, it's a serious red flag. Mm-hmm. It should not be overlooked. He also supposed to lead a process. Let me on this. He's supposed to lead a process that people who have stolen tens of millions of dollars from Nigeria, somebody who got $5 million stolen money, maybe in Europe or in Ghana, could say, Council Massaquoi, just take $1 million. Let me go. And I will take the $4 million. He will take it because he appears that he's all about money.
Thank you.
I end it.
Thank you. He also, according to what I read, he also represented the former First Lady Nancy Bido. Let me bring in Mr. Aliyu Samba Kamara. Mr. Aliyu.
Yes, Dennis, we all really anticipated this show tonight. But Dennis, if Joseph Burger was having a second thought on this Council of Massaquoi issue, and afterward watch this show tonight, I think this show will make him to actually stand by his decision, Dennis. Dennis, our sister Massa said that people are going after her for XYZ reasons, but her accusations, Dennis, like the ones she has made on the show, Jerome Brady had to come out to clarify certain things. In fact, the other day, Mr. A.B. Kroma did not take lightly her accusation that he was chief of staff of Yoruba, even though it was Mohammed Doumbouya. She said Ali White is doing this for this
after the death of Doumbouya.
I think I'm a caller, man. Let me just make my point go.
No. I just corrected what you said. She said after the death of Doumbouya. That's you said.
When Mohammed Doumbouya died, and before he died, A.B. Kroma was chief of staff AFL. Now you remember.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so what was that? So, some of these accusations, Joseph Boakai, she talked with Joseph Boakai people, and they said Joseph Boakai cared nothing. If they decide not to take out the court, she will say, oh, because a woman. So I'm just advising my sis. Sometimes it's passionate, and wild allegations sometimes can lead you to trouble, not because of gender. But I do agree with them. I don't think the way this guy was hired to this position, I'm not worried about the accusation because I haven't heard any fact, especially from the legend and progressive John. I haven't heard any all kinds of accusations, to be frank with you. But I believe that there should have been a vetting process. I believe it should have been done a lot more open than it has been done. I hate to disagree with my own official lawyer, Jewel, but I think he's passionate and he's standing with his client in there. I see a lot of venom. I hear a lot of feelings. I hear a lot of accusations. I haven't heard any facts. But thank you for having me, Dennis.
Well, Ali, before you go, when you say you haven't heard facts, the fact that Councilor Massaquoi represented or is the agent of Debris Massaquoi, that he's also the lawyer for Agnes Taylor, are you saying that's allegation?
But that's disqualifying.
No.
I wasn't talking about those things.
All right, thank you. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Let me just clarify myself now. What I was talking about having her enough fact is the whole integrity thing that they put on him. He doesn't have integrity. They haven't given you any actual fact about that.
Okay.
The fact that he represented somebody, that's why he went to law school, right?
No, but those people will come, be part of the war crime. So isn't that conflict?
Well, again, like I said, there should have been a vetting process.
Thank
I
you.
don't see the conflict at this time unless he was a judge. If he was a judge, then I would say, yeah, we see conflict. But until then, again, I'm not disputing that something is wrong with Massaquoi. I'm not also saying that something is not wrong with Massaquoi. But I'm saying I haven't heard any fact as to why he would do this and why he would do that. Except for the fact that he's a lawyer.
Thank you. Thank you. Our last caller here is 404 area code. Your name and where you calling from? Oh. Hello, caller.
I wasn't playing music.
All right. Caller, let me know when you're ready. Let me start with you, Madam Washington. Your response for our callers.
What is the name of the caller who just got off? Or what's his name again?
Aliyu Kamara.
Okay, Aliyu Kamara. Okay, so I can understand. Aliyu Kamara, for your information, I am known to be factual speaking. I speak the truth. I do not lie. I have no reason whatsoever to lie. I'm a journalist, and as a trained journalist, the truth is my defense. I was on the TRC, and I was one of those who argued to my colleagues that if we didn't do anything right on the TRC, we had to get the truth right. This is why today there is not a single individual or entity that is named in the TRC report that have come out to say the TRC lie on them. No, we haven't seen that person yet. So everything you said here is false. You're trying to speak on ethnic lines because AP Kroman is from your ethnic group. That's how you guys carry on. In my post, you are referring to my Facebook post. In my post, I said, I personally saw A.B. Kroman 3 different times with Alhaji Kroman when they were fighting actively for Ulimbo. A.B. Kroman was chief of staff to Alhaji Kroman. He replaced Domuya when Domuya was killed in the barracks by Ulimbo J fighters. Okay? And I personally saw him 3 times in his uniform, in his full war gear during the war. I was a journalist and reporting, and I know what I saw. So you cannot tell me that what I saw is not the truth. I just wanted to say that. And let me address.
Hold on, Ms. Madam Washington. Let me bring you our last caller who was playing the music. So hold your thought there. Sorry. Caller, your name and where you calling from.
Hi, my name is Catherine Gibson. I'm calling from Atlanta.
Go ahead, Catherine. And you are calling from the Gibson law firm?
Yes.
All right, good. Go ahead. Thanks for calling.
Well, I wanted to thank everyone for the elevated discussion and all of the service from the TRC Commission. This show was extremely important to me, just listening in on the conversation. But when I heard the discussion about lobbyists and how, he's a lobbyist in such a negative way, I wanted to point out that lobbyists are very important for the democratic system. They elevate issues to lawmakers who are often very busy with fundraising. They write legislation. They're very, very positive for certain groups that wouldn't be able to get in front of the lawmaker. For example, nonprofits, women's rights, environmental issues, as well as possibly securing the funds that are going to be used for the War and Economic Crimes Court in Liberia. And so when I hear it being, thrown around that he's a lobbyist and he just wants money, it kind of concerns me because I think a lot of people do what they love, do good things, and they also earn a living while doing it. It doesn't mean that it's a bad thing that he wants to get paid in bringing something that is going to be positive for the country. But my question is, what is your view in the bifurcation of the economic and the war crime court? I think the legislation separated the two and put them on 2 different tracks. And also, I'm not sure if it's correct to judge a criminal attorney by their client. Everyone that's accused deserves a representation and due process. It doesn't mean that that person who's representing them should be judged by the client that they take. I think that this individual who was selected is supposed to play a role to set up the economic crimes court, but not necessarily be an active participant, such as a prosecutor or a judge in that process.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Joe, I want you to take that first.
So yeah, I wanted to the last caller, Gibson, right? You might be speaking about what an attorney should be doing along with his client, but Councilor Massaquoi, Jonathan Massaquoi is not just an attorney. He is an attorney, in fact, for Gibra Massaquoi. He is an agent of Gibra Massaquoi in the $50 million case. He is also a beneficiary. Representing your client does not make you, what you call it, a part and parcel of whatsoever crime that he or she is accused of. When you take on the role of being the plaintiff as well as the lawyer, you are conflicted. You are conflicted. The other issue is that no one should downplay the role of the executive director on the establishment of this court. You might say he's not a prosecutor. That's true. But in Liberia, having the Speaker of the House, having one of his own protege to leave from his law office and head this kind of process, it tells you a lot. You're talking about a culture where Liberian people tend to worship their big shots, where influences are made. Just hire Councilor Jonathan Kofa to walk into a court where he is still the Speaker. What the judges do? If they don't perform, they might likely impeach them. So we're not talking about what happened in the United States. We're talking about what the Liberian culture is, what those who have power, and how are they looked at. So Jonathan is conflicted. Jonathan Massaquoi is conflicted. Beyond that, Councilor Massaquoi has no history of prosecuting any criminal matter before the court. None.
Ms. Majida, you can continue and end your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I would like to address Ms. Gibson. So Ms. Gibson says she's bothered about, quote unquote, I'm not quoting her directly, about allegedly maybe the flagrant manner in which we are referring to the word lobbyist. If she listened to my presentation from the beginning, she would have heard me say nothing is wrong with being a lobbyist. It is perfectly legal to be a lobbyist. In fact, Mr. Allenwell has a legal business lobbying organization in the United States, and I have a copy of his registration, of that business registration. So yes, as a lobbyist, it's perfectly legal. But when you're talking about human rights, Ms. Gibson, I don't know whether you are a human rights advocate or you're in the arena of human rights. When you're talking about human rights, there is no such thing as being a lobbyist who is looking to get paid and at the same time wanting to head the process of a war crimes court.
Under a contract.
Under a contract basis. So either you're going to be a lobbyist, either you're going to be a contracted lobbyist because you got some connections, you know your way around Washington, D.C. Either you're going to be a contract lobbyist to help the war crimes court and the government get the funding that they need to run the court, and they give you your percentage, which is perfectly legal because you're a lobbyist, you're a legal lobbyist, and you work for it. So either that, you help bring the money, they give you your percentage, they pay you, you move on, you go to your next client, or you are not going to be part of the money thing. You take your hand out of it, and you want to strictly do the war crimes code and implement the TRC recommendations. The two do not go together. The two do not go together because there's a conflict there. There's a conflict of interest. Those of us who are doing this justice advocacy work, we're not doing it because we want money. If we are in a place, in a position legally where we get paid, fine. But we don't do it because we are coming on board because we know we are going to be lobbying to get money. So that's the separation, ma'am. That's the separation. And secondly, this issue with Jonathan Massaquoi. So now, yes, you can't blame Jonathan Massaquoi because he's a lawyer for people, but guess what? He cannot be a lawyer for the major perpetrators who his war crimes code that he's setting up is going to prosecute. This war crimes code that Jonathan Massaquoi is now the executive director of the secretariat, that he's going to be laying the foundation and the structure from which the court will develop to prosecute the very people, the very perpetrators that he's representing. How is he going to do that, man? It's a conflict of interest. It's a glaring conflict of interest. Even as we speak, Jonathan Massaquoi is now the lawyer for Jibril Massaquoi, whose nom de guerre is Angel Gabriel. When Jibril Massaquoi was fighting, killing people, he used to wear ski masks, cover his face. He called himself Angel Gabriel. For those of us who lived the war, who experienced the war, and who talked to other people who were victimized in the war, names such as Angel Gabriel strike fear and terrorize us because we know what it meant. Someone called and said Angel Gabriel, it means that he took upon himself the authority of life and death. It means that he could decide whether you will live or whether you will die. This is the man that Jonathan Massaquoi is lawyer of. So Jonathan Massaquoi is going to be on the secretariat as executive secretary, setting up the secretariat to prosecute people that Massaquoi. But then in the same time, he's going to be fighting Massaquoi case. Do you see the conflict of interest there? So he's going to be playing two roles. He's going to be on the War Crimes Court Secretariat as the executive director, working at the same time. He's going to be the lawyer for Jibril Massaquoi. Are you kidding me? Can't you see the clear conflict of interest?
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. I know Dagna is taking over in Monrovia there. Are you still there with us?
Mr. Stewart light might have gone off, so he can't see anything anymore. Yeah, he's coming.
No, I'm trying to get my power situation adjusted. But as I'm saying, yeah, can you please just do me a favor of just reminding me of the particular question, since I don't have
a lot of the callers were calling and say, hey, you don't have to blame Massaquoi for his role. He's a lawyer. He got to earn a living. And they asked also, someone asked if the Councilor Massaquoi office called you and said, we need your cooperation to do this. Will you be able to do it? And then another person asked, do you have the credibility to match Alan White? Are the things Alan White saying against you, or is that true or false? And then Gonglo is asking, say, hey, you guys have to go before the House and Senate in Monrovia and also write letters to Congress here explaining, according to Mr. Gonglo, the danger of Councilor Massaquoi to the War Crimes Court. So I want your response on those, please.
Well, as regards the question of credibility, I can say one thing. I have credibility in Liberia. I'm not an international person. So to match my credibility in Liberia against that of Alan White, I think is just a mistake. I've been involved in active advocacy in Liberia for over 40 years. For over 40 years. I had my first prison experience in 1974. Long years ago. So, as the question of whether I have the credibility, yes, I have the credibility. Liberian people know what I stand for. So I cannot draw a comparison between Alan White and myself, because Alan White is an international, and he came to that level of prominence because he was appointed as an investigator with the Sierra Leone court. Before that, Alan White was just an ordinary military officer, U.S. military colonel, not known internationally until he received this appointment. And then he compromised his work. Yeah.
Can you work with Councilor Massaquoi?
I'm sorry, I cannot work with him. I cannot, because I don't think he represents what I represent. We've been here advocating for our people, standing up for them. And let me say also that I'm a journalist. I covered the war. From 1990 till now. First as a Red Cross volunteer, and then as a journalist. So I have the competence and authority to speak about what happened here in Liberia. And that's something which Alan White does not have. He has no stake in this. He, like Commissioner Washington said, he has not lost any relative in the war. He doesn't know, he has not experienced through here. While he was serving as a U.S. Army colonel, U.S. forces were here in 1990, sitting offshore and watching our nation burn. You know? So I cannot draw any comparison between he and myself. I've not been involved in cloak and dagger operations as he has been, and he still is. You know, as a former U.S. military officer, a colonel, you know what it means to be a colonel in the U.S. Army? You know what it means? Especially so to be associated with Department of Defense, DIA, Department of Defense Intelligence Agency. You know what it means? So Alan White will corrupt our process. He betrayed his trust by allowing Jibril Massaquoi, secretly ferreting Jibril Massaquoi from a safe house in Freetown to come to Monrovia. And they're from some RUF fighters who felt betrayed by Jibril Massaquoi and who have said that Jibril Massaquoi gave Alan White some diamonds in exchange for amnesty, to be nulli prosequi. We hear all of this. I covered the war as a journalist. I lived in Sierra Leone for 6 months during the war. So what can Alan White say? And as for what's the other question from the lawyer?
No, that's okay. Now we thank you. I think you answered most of the questions. I want us to close now. Thank you so much for the time, so that we can be on time. I want us to conclude. Right? We talk about Jonathan Massaquoi. We talk about the future of the War Crimes Court and what your next steps will be. You know, there are still people saying, "Hey, this man, he has the right to represent people. You can't find him guilty by associating with those people." That's what some of the people are saying. So let's go around the room to draw down the curtains. Let me start with you, Mr. Stewart, on your closing comments before we let you go.
Why? Okay, I'll pose the question. Why was his nomination withdrawn when he was first nominated as Justice Minister or Solicitor General? Why was it withdrawn? Because he had character issues, integrity issues. And it's the same thing is playing here now. You know? So you can say it's good for what is good for the goose is also good for the gander. If he was not fit and proper, if he was not a proper fit for the position of a Justice Minister or Solicitor General, what makes anyone think that he is a proper fit to be Executive Director of the Secretariat for the Establishment of War and Economic Crimes Court, particularly when he's conflicted? I don't see. It's a question of integrity. It's a question of character. And I think he's woefully lacking in that.
You are muted.
Thank you. So to conclude, former Commissioner Stewart, what do you want to see going forward? What do you want to happen?
I want to see the establishment of the court. I would like to see President Boca write a letter to the United Nations to assist in the establishment of the court. I would like to see a more transparent process, a more transparent and vetting process for the selection of an executive director. That's what I would like to see. But first things first, I think President Boca needs to write the United Nations a letter. It has to be, I believe it has to be a UN-backed court. And it would not be sufficient for the U.S. alone to carry the burden, but it has to have the backing of the United Nations. I think that should be done. Also, too, I think what has been missing, what should have been the very first step before establishing a war crimes court, should have been a national apology from President Boca on behalf of all preceding presidents. President Sirleaf failed to do this for not protecting, upholding, and defending the rights of the Liberian people. And for that, the state, the leaders of the state, owe an apology to the Liberian people. We had expected that President Sirleaf would have done that. She didn't do that. President George we expected that he would have done that. He didn't do that. And we expect that President Boca would do that. Well, unfortunately, he started on the wrong foot. But we encourage him to revisit the nomination of Councillor Massaquoi. And it's not too late to make this national apology. You know, the state has the obligation to respect and uphold the rights of its citizens. This was not done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time. Ms. Washington, let me hear from you. And in your conclusion, in your closing, I want you to speak directly to President Boakai. If you were sitting across the room from him, what will you tell him?
Sure. In the first place, I would like to briefly just address the caller. I think, what was his name, Murphy or something, who questioned our credibility. What was his name? I want to address that dude directly.
Terry Collins.
Oh, Collins. Okay. So, Mr. Collins, I think you were disrespectful to us, the panelists, and especially TRC commissioners, when you question our credibility and when you try to compare our credibility to that of Alan White, someone who you don't know, a complete stranger who you don't know, but his skin is white and he comes from the West, and so he's supposed to be automatically, in your mind, superior to us. This is why Liberia is where it is, because you guys do not recognize when even you have decent people in your midst, you do not recognize your own heroes. We did the TRC work without people like Alan White. We did it to the utmost credibility and best of our competence. Our process was a decent process. And here you are, you're questioning our credibility because in your mind, Alan White is supposed to be this or demigod on earth, in your mind, because he come from outside Liberia. He's white. You know, he's a former U.S. colonel, as if to say we're supposed to be intimidated by all of those. But let me just say this to you. Alan White does not have my credibility. My credibility is 10 times higher than your Alan White. I've worked for Liberia. I worked as a journalist reporting on the war. I reported on the war before I even went on the TRC. So my being on the TRC was actually a help to the TRC. I brought credibility to the TRC process. The United States of America, based upon my work with women in the war and my work on the TRC, the United States State Department, through the U.S. Embassy in Liberia, okay, asked the U.S. ambassador at the time, Linda Thomas Greenfield, to confer upon me the International Woman of Courage Award representing the country of Liberia because of the fantastic work I did during the war, advocating for women, reporting on women's issues. I was one of the first person to start recording the issue of women in Liberia. Okay, so I won the International Woman of Courage Award for Liberia. I haven't heard your man Alan White win any such award yet, since you want to compare my credibility with Alan White. Secondly, Alan White, in the final years of his appointment or his operation in Sierra Leone, he fell out with the people because of charlatan behavior, and he left from there and came to Liberia. I have not broken the public trust. I have not stolen any money from Liberia. I have not violated the public trust. I did my work. Every time I work honorably. So I have more credibility, sir, than your Alan White. Okay? And secondly,
we can conclude now.
You ask what do I say to Joseph Boyka? I would say to President Boyka, you got it all wrong, sir. You got it all wrong. Concerning the War Crimes Code now, we appreciate that you were able to finally sign the executive order instituting the secretariat for the court. But, sir, the way you're going now, you're veering off track. You got it all wrong now, sir. So if people are advising you, they are advising you wrongly. President Boyka, you need to withdraw this appointment of Mr. Massaquoi, who represents perpetrators, because he will not be able to function and do his work without conflict of interest, without distraction, because he will be representing Jibril Massaquoi at the same time he's working as executive director of this War Crimes Secretariat, sir. So I'm appealing to President Joseph Boyka to please rescind this decision. And please invite civil society to be a part of the vetting process. Like TRC commissioners, the Commissioner Stewart said, were vetted. People didn't just appoint us because we were part of the political party or because they like us. We were vetted in. Okay, so President Boyka needs to do that. Even now, the Transitional Justice Working Group of Liberia, which was the original moral guarantor of the TRC process, came out with a statement today condemning this appointment of Jonathan Massaquoi, because the Transitional Justice Working Group is that original group that worked along with the international community in the whole TRC process. The veteran commissioner, they helped to draft a legislation and all for the TRC to start. They have come out today now. In fact, the Transitional Justice Working Group represents 26 civil society organizations of Liberia. That's a huge number. That's a huge constituency of Liberians that are saying to President Boyka, we are unhappy with this appointment you have made. And I think he needs to listen to them. And I will not work with Mr. Jonathan Massaquoi. I'm not a greedy person. I don't care to be a millionaire. I don't care to be rich. I'm comfortable where I am. If Mr. Massaquoi is going to be forced on this process, I am not going to work with him. And I'm saying it here, and I will fight him every step of the way, because this is wrong. And I will not be a part of any fraud, whether legal or not. If he is kept, if he is forced on us, I will not work with him. I will fight him every step of the way.
Thank you. Councillor Joel, you have the last word.
Let me just address Mr. Kamara before I can say anything about the next step. I'm a person who doesn't really care where you come from or who are you to represent you. And the interests of my client does not become emotional for me. I'm very, very practical. Ask the court, ask people in Liberia, ask clients who are represented. I don't jump and represent you because you got some friendship with me. I represent the law. You know what is interesting in Liberia is that when you support one group of people that one Liberian support, you are their hero. When you turn your back and support the next group of people or you represent them, oh, that's what Mr. Kamara has done with the Joseph Boyka thing. He doesn't see anything wrong with Joseph Boyka appointment. Liberians who have their relative killed are concerned. Jonathan Massaquoi is Jibril Massaquoi is Jonathan Massaquoi in the case in Liberia. He has filed a $50 million suit. If that does not mean anything to you at all, then fine. Support Mr. Joseph Boyka as saying, look, the civil society in Liberia, as I said, need to come together and write President Boyka to withdraw his appointment, his nomination, and whatever it is. Councillor Massaquoi is not the right person to be there. How is he looking at Councillor Massaquoi, who coming from the Speaker's law office to be heard? Is he thinking that the international community will give money to Liberia to support this court with the enormous influence from the Speaker of the House? And with Mr. White being his advisor, I mean, I think it was a childish job for any Liberian to try to, match up the credibility with Mr. White. Why would any Liberian want to do that? I would not waste my time to address that. I would say at this point, President Boyka, if he really sincere, he need to consult the Bar Association. He need to consult the Female Lawyer Association, the civil society group in Liberia. He need to consult the Liberian Council of Judges, people who know about what the war meant and how much impact it had. Not certifying a political interest by appointing Councillor Massaquoi. For me, Councillor Massaquoi is one, professionally unqualified. Two, he is no different from those he's representing because he has a letter of what you call it, and he's an attorney for one of them, asking the civil law court to grant him a judgment of $50 million. Is that not enough to say that this guy is conflicted? If Joseph Boyka wants a legacy, he needs to make sure that the steps that he's taking are corrected. Other than that, you just have another war crime court as the Assets Recovery Commission.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner Washington, Commissioner Stewart, and Councillor Joe. I really appreciate your time. I want to thank our viewers for watching. Always focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, we're going to close with our song that says, whether you support the appointment of Councillor Jonathan Massaquoi or not, We are all Liberians. What is incumbent upon all of us is to do our very best to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Have a good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.